Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amr Abdel Ghaffar. I'm the Regional Director for the Middle East of UNWTO, and it is my pleasure to welcome you today to this meeting on the future of tourism in the Middle East and North Africa, which UNWTO is organizing jointly with Casa Árabe for the second, and Casa Mediterráneo in the framework of Fitur for the second year. World tourism results published by the United Nations World Tourism Organization last Monday reflect a mixed picture concerning the evolution of tourism throughout last year. You have a group of countries in the Levant who have been affected by the geopolitical situation in the region. And at the same time, you have another group of countries, those of the Gulf, who have grown significantly, which makes it overall balanced in the Middle East region in the sense that growth was very modest or close to zero level growth. But on the other hand, you have the North African region, particularly the two major destinations, Morocco and Tunisia, who have posted very positive results for the first 11th month of the year. So our forum today will provide us the opportunity to overview or have an overview or review with our distinguished guests today, the Honorable Ministers of Tourism of Morocco, Tunisia, and we are joined also by His Excellency, the Minister of Tourism of Algeria, Minister of Tourism of Egypt, Lebanon, and the Managing Director of the Jordan Tourism Board. They will all give us the opportunity to review the situation, the current situation in tourism in the region, in the light of the evolution of the regional political context and the global context of the world economy, which, as you know, particularly concerning the Eurozone, is affecting the tourism sector. It will also enable us to share with our guests their assessment of the short and medium-term outlook of the tourism sector in their countries, of the policies their governments are adopting, and of the measures they've been taking to accelerate recovery of tourism flows in the one hand, consolidate that recovery, boost the competitiveness of their destinations, remove obstacles to the sustainable development of the tourism sectors so that it can play fully its role as a key sector and a driver of the economic development of their countries. We have a very tight program today, which will consist of a 45-minute panel discussion, followed by a 15-minute questions and answers session from the floor. For practical reasons, the meeting will be essentially held in English with a simultaneous interpretation service provided from and to Spanish. And for those who need it, headsets are available at the entrance of this room. So before giving the floor to our panel, I would invite the authorities that are honoring us with their presence today to open this event. And I would directly call on His Excellency Ambassador Eduardo López, the Director General of Casa Árabe, to address the meeting. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Esta es la segunda ocasión en que celebramos un acto de estas características. Casa Árabe, junto con la OMT, organizó el año pasado la primera sesión, la primera jornada, y fue tal el éxito que hemos pensado repetirla esta y, evidentemente, consolidarla. Nosotros, Casa Árabe y también Casa Mediterráneo, tenemos mucho interés precisamente en la capacidad del turismo, la capacidad de generar riqueza, la capacidad o la necesidad de contribuir también a la formación o el intercambio, la cooperación. Por tanto, asignamos una gran importancia a un acto como el de hoy. Casa Árabe actúa en 3 dimensiones como instrumento de diplomacia pública liderado por el Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores y de Cooperación español, y lo hacemos, por un lado, en las cuestiones relativas a artes visuales y cultura, por otro lado, en las cuestiones relativas a la economía y, en tercer lugar, por las cuestiones relativas a gobernanza o a relaciones internacionales. Un segmento, un sector de la actividad económica de estas características, como es el turismo, tiene la ventaja de compatibilizar y de tener al mismo tiempo las 3 dimensiones. Por tanto, es muy importante para nosotros en nuestras actividades. Hemos venido trabajando con la Organización Mundial del Turismo de Naciones Unidas, especialmente desde el año pasado, desde este propio acto. Firmamos un convenio en su momento y albergamos en nuestra sede de Córdoba, en el mes de noviembre, una reunión de altos funcionarios, de autoridades de turismo de todos los países árabes. Hemos tenido también segmentos o elementos de cooperación diversa, precisamente haciendo o abriendo en nuestra casa, en nuestra sede de Córdoba, a diferentes autoridades visitas, organizando visitas sobre un sector como es el turístico tan importante en España. Antes de concluir, simplemente quiero destacar que hay otra dimensión añadida a estas dimensiones en el turismo y es la conservación del patrimonio. Y en ese sentido, Casa Árabe está trabajando con la Alhambra de Granada en la organización de una serie de seminarios y una serie de conferencias que tendrán lugar en Madrid a partir del día 28 de enero con la participación de la directora del patronato, María del Mar Villafranca, que hablará sobre arte y patrimonio. Quiero aprovechar esta oportunidad para invitarles a ustedes porque esta conferencia del día 28 y el conjunto de seminarios que se celebrarán posteriormente darán lugar a un elemento de mayor cooperación con la Alhambra que tendrá como objetivo central precisamente ofrecer todas las lecciones aprendidas a los países de nuestro entorno y, como no, especialmente a los países de la región MENA. Y nada más, agradecerle su presencia aquí y desear que hoy tengamos, digamos, un panel tan importante, tan interesante como fue el del año pasado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Ambassador. May I now call on His Excellency, the Secretary of State of Foreign Affairs of Spain, Mr. Gonzalo Benito, to address the meeting.
Buenas tardes. Quiero empezar agradeciendo a la Organización Mundial de Turismo, a Casa Árabe, a Casa Mediterráneo, a Casa África, la invitación para intervenir en este acto sobre un tema que tanto interesa a España por una doble razón. Primero, porque se trata del turismo, un sector fundamental para la economía española, y en segundo lugar, porque se refiere al ámbito mediterráneo, que es la zona en la que España vive y se desenvuelve. Quiero, en primer lugar, dar una cálida bienvenida a los señores ministros de Turismo de Argelia, de Egipto, de Líbano, de Túnez, responsable de la Oficina de Turismo de la Entidad de Turismo de Jordania, y desearles una feliz estancia estos días en Madrid. El turismo, señoras y señores, es un sector de gran relieve en esa visión compartida que tenemos con sus países de hacer el Mediterráneo un espacio, un lago de paz, de estabilidad y de prosperidad, en el que recuperar lo que fue el marco de las grandes civilizaciones, origen de la cultura occidental. Para España, esta región, que incluye el norte de África y Oriente Medio, tiene una trascendencia fundamental y es una prioridad clara de nuestra política exterior. Con estos países, con los países de la región MENA, no tenemos además únicamente una relación de vecindad, sino más bien una relación de interdependencia. Su estabilidad y su prosperidad son también las nuestras. En esta región, creo que es obligado referirse a ello, estamos viviendo unos procesos de profundo cambio y que vivimos con algunas incertidumbres también, pero estamos convencidos de que su desenlace va a conducir a sociedades más justas, más prósperas y más libres. En un momento como el actual, la política española en la región está dirigida a apoyar estos procesos como resultado de una voluntad libremente expresada por los ciudadanos de los respectivos países. Y en este terreno del turismo, en estos procesos de cambio, tenemos nosotros también aquí en España una historia reciente y un capital importante de experiencia en el ámbito de la reforma política. Esta experiencia nos permite, creo yo, primero comprender mejor estos procesos. Podemos entender que en estos procesos que no se producen de un día para otro pueda haber avances y retrocesos, dificultades, seguro que dificultades importantes, pero creo que como españoles somos capaces de comprenderlos quizá mejor que otros. Y creo que somos también, tenemos la posibilidad de explicar cuál fue nuestra experiencia y, por lo tanto, acompañarles a ustedes de corazón y con todo el sentimiento y desear que todo se produzca de la mejor manera posible. Por eso, en la Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional hemos desarrollado el programa MASAR, el programa Adelante, de acompañamiento a los procesos de gobernabilidad democrática. En el seno de la Unión Europea, también impulsamos una acción decidida para que a través de lo que llamamos la política de vecindad de la Unión Europea, el Mediterráneo cuente con el máximo compromiso político y financiero que merece tanto la región como el momento que atraviesa actualmente, y uno de nuestros objetivos ha sido, en el establecimiento de las perspectivas financieras para los próximos años en la Unión Europea, que el Mediterráneo siguiera contando con 2/3 de toda la financiación que la Unión Europea concede a los países de su entorno, y que lo que llamamos la vecindad oriental, la vecindad del este de Europa, quedara en los límites en que ha estado tradicionalmente, que es 1/3 de la financiación total. De manera que también en la Unión Europea procuramos acompañar y apoyar en todo lo que está en nuestras manos. Creo que es de importancia para todos que las transiciones que se están teniendo lugar actualmente se consoliden para lograr esa verdadera estabilidad a largo plazo que sirva para que el turismo encuentre su papel como motor de desarrollo y pueda realizar todo su potencial. Por eso, en el marco de nuestras relaciones bilaterales con los distintos países, el turismo ha ido adquiriendo una importancia creciente por el papel que España desempeña como uno de los principales destinos turísticos en el mundo, con todo lo que ello implica en términos de experiencia, de conocimiento y desarrollo de políticas turísticas, como también porque somos un país ya importante emisor de turismo. Quiero en este punto decir que por las dos razones, tanto por nuestra experiencia en el sector como por ser país emisor de turismo, quiero decir que el hecho de que los países europeos de la cuenca mediterránea se hayan convertido actualmente en un destino refugio ante la inestabilidad en otras zonas del mundo y en algunas zonas próximas a nosotros en la zona mediterránea, por incertidumbres políticas, por conflictos bélicos, no es algo que nos lleve a ver las cosas de manera diferente. Para nosotros, contribuir a la estabilidad y al desarrollo económico de la región es una prioridad fundamental. Apostamos por una región mediterránea en su conjunto como destino turístico más importante del mundo y trabajamos para ello con una visión global. Es cierto que tenemos desafíos en el sector turístico y son desafíos que sentimos como compartidos por todos nosotros. Entre otros, la vulnerabilidad propia del turismo mediterráneo, que incluye también los problemas de medio ambiente. El Mediterráneo es un mar cerrado, de mareas débiles, con rutas de denso tráfico comercial y es frecuentemente víctima de una contaminación de orígenes diversos. También los fenómenos de urbanización creciente, de industrialización mal controlada y de intensificación agrícola afectan a las costas del litoral mediterráneo. Hay otros aspectos de carácter más técnico, los relativos al producto turístico, la calidad, la estacionalidad, la variedad, que tienen también su incidencia en el desarrollo del sector en toda la cuenca mediterránea, pero que no me corresponde a mí referirme a ellos. El turismo es además una actividad económica y empresarial en la que también compartimos la necesidad de regular bien las inversiones extranjeras, de transferir los conocimientos y la tecnología, de formar a nuestros trabajadores como especialistas en los servicios turísticos y de garantizar la adecuada seguridad jurídica. Creo que es otro desafío que compartimos los países de la región MENA con los países del sur Mediterráneo y particularmente con España. Por todo ello, proponemos que los esfuerzos para explotar el potencial turístico de la región no se limiten al plano interno y tengan una importante dimensión multilateral, y aquí la Organización Mundial de Turismo juega obviamente un papel fundamental. Finalmente, yo quisiera subrayar que la relevancia del sector turístico no es estrictamente económica, no es solamente económica. Consideramos que su contribución a un mejor entendimiento entre los pueblos y, por tanto, a la paz y a la estabilidad en el conjunto del mundo debe ser también puesta en valor. Estoy seguro de que este debate va a servir para plantear estrategias, para proponer medidas y presentar una imagen de la región en el mundo más acorde con la realidad, una región que, como digo, compartimos con todos ustedes. Todo ello, junto con esta Feria Internacional de Turismo, debe ayudar a recuperar los flujos turísticos y consolidar el potencial turístico de nuestros respectivos países. Si esto es así, esta será una gran noticia para el conjunto de nuestra región y pueden ustedes contar siempre con la comprensión y con el apoyo de España en esta tarea compartida. Muchas gracias.
May I now call on the Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization, Dr. Taleb Rifai, to please take the floor.
It's a pleasure to be here at the opening of this second session of the UNWTO Casa Árabe Forum on Tourism in the Middle East and North Africa. I must start by thanking you, Mr. Gonzalo, de Benito, for honoring us with your presence here. I think it carries a great meaning. We will appreciate it, and we understand this clear message of your presence here. Thank you so much. You're absolutely correct. Both tourism and the MENA region are important to Spain. They are very much in the heart of the interest there. Spain has never been too far from the issues and the concerns and the progress of the Middle East and North Africa, the extended Mediterranean region. So thank you for being with us. Señor Eduardo López Busquets, thank you also for your energy that you have put into this joint venture. We have so many things going on between us, and we appreciate them very much, and I hope we will continue to cooperate for the good and the benefit of all the people around this Mediterranean. I'd also like to thank Casa Mediterráneo for cooperating with us here, and we extend and look forward for extended cooperation. I want to particularly welcome the ministers that have been here with us today. On the stage, of course, we have the Minister of Morocco, my very good friend, Minister Hussein Haddad, Minister Gamal Gamra from Tunis, my very good friend Hisham Zazoua from Egypt. I just came from Egypt last week, and I'm sure he has a lot to talk about. Minister Fadi Aboud, the great minister of the country of Lebanon, that is struggling so hard to keep it steady and alive and booming and kicking. And my good friend Abdulrazak Arabiyat from Jordan, of course. I also welcome the minister from Algeria here with us, and I hope that we would be conducting a very beneficial and conducive forum. I would also like to welcome all the ambassadors that are here, that have honored us with their presence. And each and every one of you, welcome, and I hope that we will leave this room a bit more aware, a bit more educated, and a bit more knowledgeable about what's going on in this important part of the world. My dear friends, World Tourism results for 2013 that was just released last Monday by UNWTO show that international tourism has grown by 5% over the year 2012. This is good news, and it's happening against all odds. It's happening against the background of very difficult economic situation in the Eurozone and beyond, and an extremely complex geopolitical situation around the Mediterranean, and plenty of man-made and natural crises that are hitting and still will continue to hit the world every now and then. Yet tourism continues to grow. And in the Middle East and North Africa, it is amazing and surprising how this industry has been so resilient and able to survive also against many odds. Maybe different in their effects and their influence, but still, it's a manifestation of the resilience of this industry. North Africa's consolidation and recovery was initiated in 2012. I am sure, and I'm not giving the credit to Jamal Jamra because he's here. He has contributed tremendously with uplifted spirit and insisting to be there in every forum and speaking for the good of tourism in Tunis and for the good and the progress of Tunis. The recovery of Tunis, together with the bullish and the very strong performance of Morocco, have made North Africa grow at plus 6% in 2013 over 2012. We're looking forward to the contribution of Algeria. Libya is a very promising market that is in the making, and there are very serious signs that they intend to take tourism very seriously in the days to come. The results in the Middle East, as Amr Abdel Ghaffar just said, were mixed results. There are some good news and some news that still needs much more effort and much more cooperation and support from your side. We have here representatives of two countries that are struggling so hard, Lebanon and Jordan, that for very understandable reasons to you that I do not need even to refer to, are causing great stresses and difficulties to these two countries. On the other hand, the Middle East, the other side of the Middle East and the Gulf states, there has been quite progress. This progress has manifested itself in a rise in international arrivals. Much was due to many of the unfortunate losses of other Middle Eastern destinations. However, the picture equalized itself in numbers at least, but not in real terms, because the equalization in number at a zero growth, no depression and no progress is not a good sign, because it is not hitting everybody in a fair and in an equitable way. My dear friends, in spite of the long history of external shocks, tourism growth in the MENA region over the past 2 decades is in many ways, and contrary to what many of you may perceive from the outside, a true success story. Let me tell you why. International arrivals in the region in the year 1990, a little bit over 20 years ago, was only 18 million. Today, it is close to 80 million, 80. To be precise, 78 million in 2010, 81 million in 2011, and we have not closed many of the results of the years after that. The receipts, the earnings from tourism in the Middle East and North Africa combined is also another success story. In 1990, the receipts were a mere $9 billion US dollars. Today, they stand at 60 billion. This, if shows anything, shows that there is a determination and there is a will and a desire to make tourism part of the future of that region. Building peace, establishing the foundations of prosperity, and making people meet with people and establish what we call real peace in that region. The past 3 years, naturally, were years of difficulty in the region. Yet our sector has shown once again its resilience, and it's standing up there. And it's difficult when you build a foundation of good and strong tourism sector to simply imagine that it would go away because 1 or 2 years of difficulty or even 10 years of difficulty. Egypt, a country of 6,000 years old, is not going to become something different because of 6 weeks, 6 months, or even 6 years of difficulty. We know that, they know that, and that's what logic and history has taught us. Key industry indicators in the region, such as international passengers traffics, airlines, and airport expansions, and total development projects, still bring much hope, and we're finding much good news coming out of there. UNWTO long-term forecast, we have in the last 2 years issued the 2030 progress report that would forecast what would the world tourism trends look like in 20 years, in 2030, is predicting that in the MENA region, we would reach 195, close to 200 million by the year 2020. That's almost triple the current block. Of course, we are not going to do that easily, and we will experience many difficulties every now and then. There will be setbacks, and we have to prepare ourselves for them. But eventually, and a strategic long-term perspective to this is going to show that our forecast has been so far and will continue to be correct. The recurrent crisis make it clear that those destinations and those companies that have sufficiently diversified their project and customer base and have been flexible enough and adjustable enough to market shifts have come on top. It can be done. Against all odds, it can be done. As a matter of fact, much of the changes that have swept and will continue probably to sweep much of the regions in the Middle East may bring with them some winds of positive news and some winds of good news. The new climate of insistence on transparency, the rise against corruption, against monopolies, is good for business. We should look at the positive sides of some of the movements that are taking place in the Middle East, just like in all parts of the world. With every shift, with every change, there are some prices to pay, but there are some hopes. We must look at the opportunities that come out of the difficulties and out of the challenges. And that's precisely why these 5 very brave men sitting on the stage here are struggling and fighting. And believe me, we know each and every one of them. We know what they do every day, and we know how much they try hard every day. They are an example of others back there in the Middle East and North Africa that are trying so hard. I trust that the current situation in the MENA region affords us the opportunity to reflect on existing strategies and development models, learn the lessons, and move forward. And I'm sure that this forum will provide us with a very good opportunity to share views and ideas on moving forward tourism in the MENA region. I truly wish you a very fruitful, very educational, and conducive forum. Muchas gracias.
Let us move now to the panel discussion with our distinguished guests. Let me briefly introduce the ministers present here today. First, on my right-hand side is Dr. Lahsen Haddad, the Moroccan Minister of Tourism since 2012. Previous to his appointment as minister, he served as the academic director of the School of International Training in Vermont in the United States of America, and as professor at the Mohammed V University in Rabat. He holds a PhD in Human and Social Sciences from the Indiana University in the USA and an MBA from the St. Thomas Aquinas College in New York. He's a renowned international expert in strategic planning and management, sustainable development, democracy, and governance, as well as in communication. Welcome, Minister, and thank you for being with us. Mr. Jamal Gamra is the Tunisian Minister of Tourism since March 2013. He's an engineer specialized in maritime transportation. He holds several master degrees, in fact, in port management, shipbuilding, and computer science. He's worked in several international organizations specializing in IT, safety, and innovation, mining, and consulting. And prior to his appointment as Minister of Tourism, he held the posts of President of the Regional Union of Industry, Trade, and Handicrafts in the government of Sousse, and he was the CEO of the Tunisian Navigation Company. On his right-hand side is Minister Hisham Zaazoua, Minister of Tourism of Egypt since 2012. Prior to joining the Egyptian cabinet, Mr. Hisham Zaazoua served as first assistant to the Minister of Tourism for 4 years, during which the Egyptian tourism industry has known particularly fast growth. Mr. Zaazoua has also a very successful career over 30 years in the Egyptian travel and tourism industry in the private sector, through which he held several managerial posts in major travel groups in Egypt, and was elected as Director General of the Egyptian Tourist Federation in 2004, post which he held until 2007, when he joined the Egyptian Ministry of Tourism. On his right-hand side is Minister Fadi Aboud. He's a Lebanese businessman and politician who began his career in the packaging industries, becoming the company's chairman in 1982. Later, he held the position of Director of Plastic Engineering Projects in the United Kingdom. He also held several managerial positions upon coming back to his country from the United Kingdom, returning. In the machines and metal and food processing sectors. He was twice elected president of the Association of the Lebanese Industrialists. He was also a member of both the American Lebanese and the International Chambers of Commerce. And he was appointed Minister of Tourism in November 2009 and reappointed in June 2011. Finally, Dr. Abdelrazak Arabiyat is the Managing Director of the Jordan's Tourism Board, the organization in charge of positioning and promoting Jordan as a tourist destination. Dr. Arabiyat has a solid background in finance. He has occupied several managerial positions in this area in the Jordanian Telecommunications Regulatory Commission and in the Ministry in Planning and the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities as well, before his appointment to his present position. So let us first start with you, Dr. Haddad, by congratulating you on the results that our Secretary General has just announced, this growth of above 6% of tourism in your country, in the volume of tourism arrivals throughout the first 11 months of the year. Which really reflects the resilience that characterizes the tourism industry in general and particularly in our region, because these results were achieved in a particularly complex context, both on the geopolitical and on the economic level. So could you please shed some light on the current situation of tourism in Morocco, on the significance of the sector to your country's economy, and on your government's policies regarding this particularly important sector?
Thank you. Let me just start by thanking the World Tourism Organization for organizing this panel with my colleagues and also for choosing this topic, which is a very important topic for us to debate today. Let me just say that one or two things before I talk about the situation in Morocco. I think we are all in the same boat on the MENA region, and I think that tourism is complementary rather than there is a rivalry between countries. I think when countries prosper in the field of tourism, I think we all prosper together, because the more flow there is towards the region, the more countries should benefit. And I think if there are countries that are developing, I think that's a good story to tell in other places. And I think that generally the fundamentals all over the MENA region are good. And I think we should really invest in those and try to deal with those. The other thing also is, like, we are talking about a very particular and exceptional situation here. We have the geostrategic situation of the Arab Spring, which is a very important political challenge that is happening in all the countries. And I think that most countries are dealing with that and dealing with that in a very creative way. And I commend the efforts done in different countries, in Tunisia, in Egypt, in Lebanon and Jordan. And on the other hand, at least for Morocco, but I know it's the case also for Tunisia and Egypt, our partners in Europe are going through also a very important economic crisis. So, and that's also a very important factor that we should take into consideration. So if there is a growth in Tunisia or in Egypt or in Morocco, I think it's within that kind of context where there is difficulty within the geostrategic situation, and at the same time with our partners. In Morocco, Europe is like 70% of our partnership is with Europe. We get most of our, probably 80% of our tourists come from Europe and from Western Europe, and from two very important markets, which are the French markets and the Spanish markets. We get about 50%. And those markets we know that they go through very, very important and very difficult kind of times, whether at the level of public finance or at the level, economically. So given that situation, we have been able in Morocco to resist the impact of the Arab Spring and the impact of the crisis, and we have been able to achieve a modest growth in 2011, a more remarkable growth in 2012, and this year we are hoping to achieve something like between 7 and 10%. We are still closing the books with regard to the statistics of this year. What is it that made us like achieve this? I think one of the things is that the fundamentals are good. And the fundamentals, we talk about the fact that there is a vision, and it's a vision that is sponsored by the government, by the state, by the king, and that sets the parameters for us. I mean, like, what is there to do in order to we have a vision we call 2020, and that vision allows us to agree consensually all the actors about where we need to go from here to 2020. The other thing also that we have been able to do is we have been able to tap into different kinds of markets, traditional markets and emergent markets. So we have been able to consolidate our presence in Western Europe, but we have been also been able to branch off and then go into emergent markets in Eastern Europe, in the Gulf countries and the Arab world, and also in Latin America and North America. And that has allowed us actually to diversify our markets and to make up for some of the loss that we have had on the Italian markets and sometimes on the Spanish markets as well. I think the third thing that we have been able to do is actually to communicate and to do a very important communication campaign in order to talk about Morocco, to talk about the political stability in Morocco, to talk about the fact that there has been like very major changes towards more democracy, towards like freedom, towards the consolidation of human rights in Morocco. And we have been also been able to communicate about what we are doing in the sector of tourism in terms of diversifying our offer. You know that Morocco is 80% a cultural kind of destination, and we have been able to build more resorts so that we can make of it a seaside destination. You know, Morocco is 3,500 kilometers of sea, but nevertheless, we don't have like a huge kind of offer in terms of seaside resorts. We have been able to do that now, and we have been also able to tag into or tap into the potential of niches, whether in Gulfic and Gulfic tourism or business tourism or nature and ecology tourism. All of those have been very important for us. But I mean, the other thing that we have been able to communicate, and it's given its results, is like Morocco is not only Marrakesh and Agadir, Morocco is different kinds of destinations. So we have been able to redistribute the offer in Morocco so that we have 8 territories where we can tap into different kinds of tourists in different kinds of markets. One last thing, and I don't want like to monopolize, maybe you come back to me and then with more details, is the fact that without transportation, you can't have a destination. And we have devised a good campaign with airlifting, which is very, very important. And what we did is like we studied the different kinds of potential that we have in terms of offer in Morocco, and we have also looked at different markets which may be interested in those kinds of destinations, and we have been able to achieve airlifts and air traffic from those kinds of markets, which is very important. So we have been able, at one moment we were low cost, like about 45%, and the regular about 45% in 10 charter. We have been able now to balance those out more into regular for destinations where we have like high-end and luxury kinds of hotels, more of the low cost where we have like city break kind of destinations like Casablanca, Marrakesh, and Fez, and more of the charter destinations for markets which are more seaside, for markets which are like where we don't have like connections, and also with destinations where there is the packaging, especially seaside destinations. So all of this in order to tell you that it has been like a very important struggle, but it's also a success story because there are the fundamentals. I think the political situation plays a very important role, but the fundamentals of tourism play as well a role. We hope that we will be able to in 2014, achieve something like 10% growth in terms of arrivals. But one of the things that we need to be aware of, we can have more arrivals, we can have more night stays. Let's not also reduce the revenue. We can have the growth, but we can have also reduced revenue. And I think one of the things, let's not make of our region a cheap kind of destination. It's very, very important that we resist the fact of making our destinations and the MENA destinations a very cheap destination. Let's not only look at the indicator of arrivals, let's look at the indicator of revenue as well. And I think we make a balance between those in order to continue to build and continue to grow. Thank you.
We move on to you, Minister Gamra, now. You have also posted positive results, as mentioned by our Secretary General and Minister Haddad. They clearly demonstrate the capacity of the tourism sector to resist to external shocks, bounce back, and even grow positively. So we would like also to hear from you your assessment of the current situation and of the measures you have taken to successfully bring back the industry on track.
Thank you very much, President of the session. Let me also start by thanking the UNWTO and Mr. Secretary General, Dr. Rifai, and Mr. President of Casa Africa, Casa Mediterráneo, Casa Árabe for this very interesting event. In fact, Tunisia has been going through a very difficult period. These last 3 years have been very difficult for us. But it's also an investment for the future of young Tunisians, for the future of the economy of Tunisia, the future of Tunisia, whole Tunisia. It's an investment in democracy, in freedom, in what I always say, in oxygen, when everything will grow safely in it. Oxygen, everyone, every business needs that, needs more freedom, more democracy, more transparency, and that is what business needs to be developed. We are investing in that, and we are paying the cost of it. But also, during all this difficult period, crisis period, there's an advantage, a major advantage. It is for tourism. Because this difficult period has shown to the whole population how tourism is important for us. Tourism now in Tunisia is the first economic sector. It used to be the third after natural resources and industry. Now tourism is the first economic sector in Tunisia. And the whole population now realize that how tourism is important for our economy. In this context, Tunisia had already a strategy and has a plan how to put that strategy on the ground. This was since 2010. Our efforts have been oriented to the people who will apply the strategy, who will use it and who put it in practice. What we have done, we have mobilized all the operators, and the touristic operators, then the whole population, to let them know how the tourism is important for them, how it is important in employment, in investment, in national incomes, and we have been working on that, how to mobilize our population. We have been working to develop the natural feeling and character of the Tunisian, he has the hospitality, how to develop this character in himself, how much he's proud of his history and his monument, and how he's happy to bring his visitor, his tourist, to show him his history, to visit the monuments, and to attract him to his country. This is very important to mobilize the whole population. Once that's done, we have been working on an urgent plan, because in short period, and to give more chance to the democratic process to succeed, we need that the economy must continue to be developed, and the role of tourism in that is very important. In this fact, we have been working on 4 urgent axes, let's say. The first is environment. How the population have to be mobilized to let our country cleaner and to respect more the environment. This is very important for the touristic sector and for the whole population. The second sector is security. How to mobilize the whole population to make our country, beside the difficulties we know, safer, and how to afford security for our visitors. Third is the quality of service, how to mobilize all the operators, even the population, how to receive better your visitors and how to give better services to our visitors. Fourth, promotion. We have to make the necessary efforts on all different levels, government levels, operators levels, and population level to promote the Tunisian destination. We have been working on this 4 axes with mobilizing the whole population and making tourism a national cause. This is very important that people feel how important tourism is, how tourism is important for them, then mobilizing many ministries around this objective. We have been mobilizing the Interior Minister to make more efforts with coordination with the Tourism Ministry to make our touristic sites and our whole country safer. We have been working with the Transportation Ministry to go faster to the open sky regulation and facilitation. We have been working with the Foreign Affairs Ministry to make the visa easier. And we started already working on the electronic visa and to make it easier. We have been working with the Environment Ministry to make our country cleaner. We have been working with the Agriculture Ministry to promote the alternative tourism. I think this whole mobilization and the fact that we have done from tourism a national cause helped us to record better results than last year. And we have to continue. We are continuing on this orientation with a more organized and scientific way in applying our new strategy. We have special boards to follow the 160 projects decided inside our strategy oriented around five axes. And we are piloting all that, following all that together to realize our objectives. These 4 axes, maybe it would be interesting to enumerate them. The first is the structure of the sector in general, how to reorganize the sector regarding the administration, looking after the sector, and the operators inside the sector. And all this needs special regulation. We are working on that. The second is our offer. Our offer is based on balnear destination, a sea, sand, and sun destination, while the Tunisian offer is wider, much wider, and much richer than that. We have a very original desert, and you are looking to let the desert, Tunisia as the desert destination, and we are working to let desert the new tourism icon for Tunisia. Third is marketing. Marketing, we are not doing well in that matter, and how to organize all those projects together. Third is the web compatible. Our offer is not web compatible enough. We are very dependent from the TU. Using and commercializing and distributing the tourism products through internet will give a wider chance to our operators and a much wider markets as well. So we are working how to let our offer more web compatible. And the fifth axe is the governance of the sector in general. I think these are the 5 axes on which we are progressing. This is to let us realize our objective, the objective of our vision, which is realizing 1 million tourists increase each year to reach 10 million tourists coming to Tunisia by 2016, and continuing on this rate in the future. It's also, as His Excellency Dr. Haddad said, related also to the income, the national income from the sector. It's very important to let our sector not be measured only by number of visitors, but mainly about the receipts from the sector.
Very good. Thank you very much, Minister, for these insights. Coming to you, Minister Zazour, as pointed out by the Secretary General, we've just hosted by you in a very important conference on the future of tourism in Egypt. So we would like you to shed some light to the audience about the current situation as well, how you see it, and particularly about the lessons that we can draw from your very strong efforts to make tourism a national issue, to mobilize the support, the necessary political support that the sector requires in these difficult situations, and engage the key institutional role players in Egypt, also develop partnerships with the private sector to recover market confidence and to bring the tourists back to Egypt.
Thank you, Amr. Let me start by also thanking you, UNWTO, my very good friend, Secretary General Dr. Taleb Rifai, and of course, Casa Árabe and Casa Mediterráneo, and thanking all the audience that's coming here to listen to our stories. Let me say that listening to my colleagues here, Mr. Haddad and Mr. Ghamra, on the issues, I think we're sharing almost the same issues even in Egypt. But let me tell you that probably one day, I personally or the Egyptian tourism industry will take the Nobel Prize for crisis, because we've been through a lot, and the one that we're living through at the moment, we should take a Nobel Prize for, because that's not a crisis, that we're living a continuous crisis. So the experience is how to live with a crisis, how to marry a crisis, something of that sort, you know. So I'm happy to share with you our experience in that respect. But if you look to the Egyptian experience so far in the past 3 years, ever since the Arab Spring started in my country, you'll find that we had a very good year right before the Arab Spring in 2010, where almost the figures reached 15 million tourists in terms of numbers of tourists arriving into the country, generating an income of approximately $12.5 billion US, which if you compare it to a source coming from the Suez Canal of Egypt, that's more than double what we get from the Suez Canal, which that year gave us approximately $5 billion US alone. So it shows the importance of this industry. The previous, as you mentioned in your opening remarks, Amr, the previous 4 years, we were growing on a double-digit growth. In 5 years, we were experiencing a phenomenal growth of 21% on average, or 20+% on a yearly basis, which is 5 times the average at the time of the world tourism increase. So in itself, I have to admit that I'm proud of this success story in a way. Now, coming to the past 3 years, we experienced a very sharp decline in 2011, where we lost almost 33% in terms of numbers and 30% in terms of receipts. And then we picked up again. So in terms of numbers, for instance, in 2011, we were 9.8, and then we grew a million in number of tourists. We grew in 2012 to 11.5. So we gained 17% in terms of numbers in just less than 1 year, and I cannot claim that that was a comfortable, peaceful year in my country. We had a lot of turmoil happening and demonstration in the streets, and the media, of which I'm not accusing, but it was not too kind. It inflated that 1 square kilometer, hopping from 1 square kilometer of Cairo to a place like Mansoura or this, and it gives a sensation to the viewer that the country is practically in a civil war or on fire or whatever, and it's not true. But that is a reality that we had to deal with, and that reality will continue. And this is my recommendation to everybody, is to deal with this reality and not to accuse it, as we all do many times. The last year, 2013, the first half witnessed a trend for growth until the June 30th revolution. And then after that, we had the problems of the sit-ins, the very famous sit-ins in Rab'a and in Nahda squares in Cairo, resulting in some violent clashes between the security forces and the people in these squares. And then all of a sudden, the picture was painted in black. We had terrible negative travel advisories from literally all source markets of the world, literally all, and particularly the European ones, as Minister Haddad was mentioning. For them in Morocco or Tunisia, same for us, 73% of the business that comes to Egypt comes from Europe, and all of Europe, East and West, had a negative travel advisory. So it's exactly having a block that is telling you, point final, that's it, no more business for you for this period. And the business dropped in September. That was the second half of August, dropped by 90%. And what can you do then? So I believe I took the role of another hat, which is the role of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I went to my colleague in the cabinet. I told Mr. Nabil Fahmy, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I told him, listen, this is one of the files that you're concerned about. This is the file for me, the number one file. So I will not leave you alone to do it, to work on this file alone. I will work hand in hand. And the first visit he had was to Russia. And Russia to us is a very important source market. In 2010, it gave us 2.8. In 2012, which was not a great year, gave us 2.5 million. So, and they had also a negative travel advisory. And I told him, I want to go with you tomorrow to Russia. And he said, but you know, it's only for 2 days. And it's, I said, no, I'll meet Mr. Lavrov. I want to speak to him. And that is the kind of spirit I ask my colleagues if they face, and the results that I came out of that experience. I met with him, and I spoke to him, and I spoke to other ministers of foreign affairs during a course of 2 months of October and November, and I got some good results after that. Before I tell you the results, because that's very interesting, I want to tell you that I told each and every one that I met in the ministers of foreign affairs in the source markets that I felt, and I still feel, and I'm saying that also to you, the UNWTO, to share me this issue, because we need to discuss it, that negative travel advisories usually are generic. Once you have a problem in a country, they issue a negative travel advisory, do not travel, and it's too generic. It's for the whole country probably. Whereas maybe you have a problem in one part of the country, and the rest, I would say, it's as if it's in another country altogether in terms of tourism. There's nothing there, it's calm, it's stable, there is no problem whatsoever. So that is something that we need to discuss with the countries, that yes, I understand that you're looking for the safety and security of your citizens traveling to country X, but you need to analyze the picture more. And sometimes, I won't name countries, for political or economic reasons and interests, they change the negative travel advisory not in a logical fashion. For instance, one country I know, I won't mention the name, lifted or softened the travel advisory for Cairo, where most of the political demonstrations takes place, and left it on the Red Sea, where nothing is happening there, because they have an interest in Cairo. They have an economic interest, they have companies, they have people they have to send to take care. So you need to get this under the limelight and speak very openly and transparently and forcefully, because that's your country's interest lies there, as their interest in their countries lies there. And that is one of the lessons that I've learned and I'm sharing with you here. But what had happened, that immediately after the softening of these travel advisories, the figures changed drastically. For instance, in September, we received only a mere 300,000 passengers or tourists. And let me tell you, if you analyze the figure, some of them went out and came back again. They went to, let's say, Jordan and back again, about the same person, and stayed in the country for a longer period of time. When they softened the travel advice, some countries, in October, it jumped from 300,000 to 562. In November, yet another group of countries lifted 673, and in December, 677. Now, what do you learn from this? You learn that our industry and our area altogether is very resilient. Once you have a favorable environment, the business comes back quickly. And you need to take that issue to our colleagues in the government and the Prime Minister to the highest level. Listen, do not put the tourism file aside, thinking that it is a very vulnerable business in that sense. It is not a vulnerable business. On the shorter run, it may seem so. But an investment in that sense and creating the proper atmosphere in that sense is worth the investment. And I believe maybe I have succeeded in a way in bringing that file under the limelight in my country. And today, and maybe Taleb Rifai himself can vouch for that. He was in the country, he met the Prime Minister, he met the President, and they are all pushing with us this file forward. So there is a change in sentiments and understanding, and that's important very much in future decision-making for the other obstacles or impediments that may face the industry to grow. That is the real lesson that I got. But when it comes to the main axes that you mentioned, Your Excellency, about the 5, to me, I just have it now in my mind. I have 3 P's in Egypt, letter P's. First is promotion. First is perception, and changing the image and the perception on the other end in the source markets. And doing that is not a tourism industry perspective alone. It's a political one. Because the viewer, the constituent, the citizen, is watching the 10 o'clock news. And you need to make him understand the situation in the source market, in the receptive end, at our end, that it is not as it seems there. So there is a lot of PR communication at large should be done. And so perception and all what it takes in that respect, from straight old school PR type of press, TV, meeting decision makers, etc., all the way through to social media, internet, and usage of all the modern tools. The second is, of course, everything related to marketing and promotion, including all the details, working with the industry partners, etc. But the third P is, for us in Egypt, is poking the B, put the letters of the Ministry of Aviation, in my case, to change their policies regarding aviation. And I go back to the Mr. Haddad's opening remarks. Through your experience in Morocco, I'm taking as an example. When you started liberating your airspace in that respect, there was maybe a loss on one side for Air Morocco, maybe, their national carrier, but there was a win for the country as a whole. Now that culture, that understanding is not yet 100% both our end with our national carrier. And that was the main focal debate in Luxor in our recent. I have Jeffrey Lippin sitting there and he's nodding his head. He have witnessed himself, together with Taleb and Amr and the rest of colleagues there, this debate, that heated debate that until now I have it. But I promise you, next time we will meet, I'll make a breakthrough. I'm insisting to make the breakthrough because I love my country very much, and I believe there where the issue is there. I'm sure Fadi has the same problem, and we shared it many times before we spoke about it. He can't wait to take the microphone, so pull the mic from my jacket, Fadi. So what I want to say is poking the people responsible, the third P, in countries like Lebanon and Egypt should come number 1, because the figures, the demand is there. In spite of all the problems, the demand is there once you educate the people the right education, and it doesn't take much. Now, if you have the demand, and for us in our countries, the number 1 mode of transport is air. So if we don't work on this element, we will never grow tourism again. So there will be a limitation for this growth. So I put this as my number 1 file for the coming 12 months. Of course, the rest should work with it, opening new markets, everything. But I tell you, the figures are moving in the right direction. And I'm trying to do all the gimmicks that everybody around in this room knows about. Sub-branding the country again. I'm not focusing on the word Egypt. Egypt is there and will be there. But I have the Red Sea Riviera for the Red Sea product, Sun and Beach. And now I'm trying to create the sub-brand for the Nile, the cultural product. Trying and making direct flights. At the moment I have starting in this February, coming February, flights directly from London to Luxor and from Paris to Luxor and from Madrid with a very special, I disclosed it yesterday, with very special rates via Cairo because they want to go to Cairo. And I'm pushing hard with the rest of the tools that we all know. But for us, these are the lessons regarding resilience and how it comes back quickly once you do your homework and understand. A closing word. I know strategy. We always use the word strategy. I mean, yes, strategically, we know where do we want to go in 5 or 10 years' time. The goals you have, as UNWTO, shared with us in creating our national strategy for tourism in Egypt. However, this time, I would rather use for all the panelists here the word tactic. Tactic approach to the problem. Why? Because we are living a crisis that is changing its dimension almost by the day. Some days are good, some days are bad. So you need to adapt quickly to the bad days to ensure the minimum negative impact to take place and maximize the positive impact other days. So tactic approach to the problem is the key to succeed on those transitional times. And thank you.
Minister Aboud, I just want to point out that your country is one of the main traditional destinations in the Middle East region and one of the most appreciated destinations within the area, particularly from Middle Eastern travelers. The issue of connectivity that Minister Zazour has raised now, because you have both short haul and long haul also source markets, particularly with the Lebanese diaspora in generating markets that are distant, such as Latin America or North America, or even Africa and Europe. So how successful are you in dealing with your colleague, the Minister of Transport, and colleagues in Middle East Airlines and others in trying to strike a right balance between aviation policies and tourism policies for the benefit of Lebanon?
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope we're not boring you with all our stories. In actual fact, probably I have one of the most difficult jobs in the world nowadays. And for my friend Hisham, I think he has serious competition on the Nobel Prize.
I love that.
How to deal, with tourism in a crisis. Travel advice, I've been living, or the country has been living with travel advice for negative travel advice for the last 30 years. And certainly I'm talking of a country of 4 million people with somewhere in the region of 15 million of Lebanese origin all over the world, which really, they are the people who are keeping Lebanon ticking now. If I may, I would like, to discuss a bit our faults in the past. I remember my first trip to Tunisia back in 2010, as usual, with the minister at the time, we were exchanging figures and numbers. He's telling me that they received somewhere in the region of 7 to 8 million tourists with generating an income of about 2 billion euros at the time. Whereas Lebanon in 2010, we received about 2.2 million tourists generating $8 billion of income. So this, we were both jealous of each other. I wanted more tourists, and he wanted richer tourists. Now let me discuss with you our fault. We relied heavily on the Gulf, where this was our major, supply, if you like, of tourists. And now we are facing, due to political problems, a boycott. A boycott of probably just say about 30% of our tourists, but the 30% spent, or more than 60% of our income comes from the 30% tourists from the Gulf. So this is a lesson for us to learn: never put your eggs in one basket. And this is why we're working so very hard now to to attract the attention of our diaspora all over the world. Hence, what we are suffering with transport. We will come to that in a minute. But let me give you some numbers so at least I can, create an image. As I pointed, as you heard, in November 2009, 2010 was a bumper year. As I said, about 2.2 million tourists, generating near enough $8 billion. The decline started after 2010. 2011, we had a decline, reasonable decline of about 5-6%. 2012 was much more difficult. And 2013, I think we'll finish the year under 1.5 million, somewhere in the region of 1.4 million. But in the last 3 years, since 2010, European tourists are maintaining really, we didn't lose a lot. At the contrary, in 2012, we had more European tourists than we did in 2011. And now we're working, as I said, so hard to get not just the Lebanese from West Africa, but, the West Africans. But, we don't have a lot of time, and I know, I'm going to try not to repeat, what you heard before. What's happening among our countries? How many Lebanese are going to Morocco? And how many Moroccans are coming to Lebanon? How do you fly from Beirut, from Lebanon to Morocco, to Rabat? How do you, there are no direct flights. Transport in the Middle East and monopolies in the Middle East. We are in love with monopolies. We love monopolies. We even claim a monopoly with the Almighty. We love monopolies. This is part of our lives. So, we have to break the monopolies in the Middle East. This is something, if we are serious about tourism, our friend Mr. Ryan from Ryanair is now flying to Israel, to Tel Aviv, and promised Israel 4 million passengers in 2014. And he's flying to Tel Aviv from London, somewhere on an average price of £100 each way. Certainly, it depends when you buy the ticket. And the low-cost airlines are a taboo in the Middle East, at least in my country, probably in your country too. They don't want to know. When we talk of the national airlines, I'll tell you a story which is very, very interesting. On the 23rd of December, a couple of days before Christmas, I decided to find out the Lebanese, if they decide to come to Lebanon, how to spend the Christmas with their families, how much will they be paying? So I decided to look at the site of Air France. Beirut-Paris was $1,550. To Amman, it was $637. To Cairo, $435. I'm sure you're happy with that. Okay. To Tel Aviv, somewhere, I picked on these because it's more or less the same distance, somewhere in the region of $900, and to Larnaca, about $800. So on average, we were paying twice as much. What killed me is what is known in the industry as fuel surcharge. The fuel surcharge to Beirut was 120 euros, and the fuel surcharge to Tel Aviv, which is a bit further down the road, about 150 miles further, was 70 euros. So, this is what is happening. This is where, you end up when you are trying to, what is happening in my country at least, we hold our monopolies, we love our monopolies. It's not just about the airlines, we have probably the only gambling casino around, 300 or 400 million people. We just have the one casino. But why don't we have a casino in every city in Lebanon? That's another monopoly to talk about. We can go on and on and on. The airport is a monopoly, the port is a monopoly. But let's go back to transport. Unless we in the Arab world decide that we, today you fly from London to Barcelona or to Madrid, somewhere in the region of 100 to 120 euros. Whereas, for me to travel to Jordan, 300 kilometers away, Beirut, Amman, 300 kilometers away, we're talking 400 plus economy. Am I right?
Yes, that's
yeah.
right.
So, you know, this is really unbelievable. I lost 160,000 Jordanian tourists per annum because they used to drive to Lebanon, the absolute majority. The wife and the 3 kids in a car, 40, 50 bucks worth of petrol, couple hours, he is in Lebanon. And now, you know, the wife and the kids, it's somewhere in the region of $2,000 to $3,000 to come and spend the new year in Lebanon. Airport taxes in the Middle East are quite high. That's something, again, we have to, you know, work with. Now, let's go, how do you promote a country in crisis? Now, you know, the latest are the suicide bombers in my country, right? But then again, the media's role, what's really happening, and what is the image? You know, in this room, most of the people are thinking, as probably with Egypt, that wherever you go in Lebanon, your life is threatened, you have a 50-50 chance. Maybe you'll die, maybe you'll survive. No, the situation is not like this at all. There's a lot of exaggeration. You know, Mount Lebanon is very, very safe. You know, even, yes, officially, Lebanon has been boycotted by most of the Gulf countries. But I would like to tell you about, you know, they only managed to keep 80% away, but 20% are still coming. From countries like Kuwait, even more than 20% are still coming. So, you know, travel advice is a big, big problem. And the way to deal with it, as, you know, every week you have to change tactics. Because the way to deal with it is really to try and make sure that people understand. You know, a couple of years ago in Germany, the German TV was, I was interviewed by the German TV. So I had a translator, and I was, you know, calling on all the Germans to come to Lebanon. And the translator stopped me, but the travel advice or Ministry for Foreign Affairs says not to go to Lebanon. I stopped for like 2 or 3 seconds, and then, you know, the Lebanese mind has to work. I said, since when the Germans do what they're told? So don't listen to them, come to Lebanon. You know, really, and we are relying on inviting, you know, a lot of journalists from all over the world to try and show them, you know, the reality of the situation in Lebanon. It is quite difficult. It is not easy. But let me give you last few figures. Yes, about 70 or 80 restaurants closed down in 2013, but new restaurants, 400 new restaurants in Lebanon. The hotels, the same occupancy like 2012, somewhere in the region. We're talking of the greater Beirut area, about 52% occupancy. The rates are lower by about 17%. The situation is difficult, but it is very difficult to force Lebanon to die. Lebanon will not die. Yes, I have the most difficult job in the world, but I'm not out of a job. And we will still fight, and we will make sure that the whole people understand that this is quite a safe country. I mean, the word safe now is really, I mean, it depends. Everybody understands safe in their own way. Lebanon is relatively safe. The service provided for tourists in Lebanon is second to none. Yes, you have the boutiques maybe all over the Arab world. But again, Lebanon has a very special service. And, you know, we're working now hard to reintroduce our religious tourism, which is very important for us, ecotourism. We are trying seriously to turn our skiing centers into world-class skiing centers. We're trying to link all the centers together, whereby, you know, you can ski for a few days without having to repeat the same slope twice. We're working seriously on that. Again, the environment is very important for us, and we are working hard. Last, don't believe what you read and hear. Come and visit us in Lebanon. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Aboud, for this quite comprehensive overview of the present and future of tourism in Lebanon. Let me finally turn to you, Dr. Arabia. Thank you first for joining us for the second year. The figures posted by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities reflect that JTB's efforts in reassuring markets about the safety and security of tourist destinations and about the resilience of products in Jordan, despite the political environment in the region, have been quite effective. Your use of harnessing the power of new technology has been particularly a model for several countries in the region. I'd like to share with you your experience in this regard. And we would also ask you, please, to shed some light on the alliances, an issue that Minister Aboud has raised with tour operators and with some regional airlines also in joining hands and packaging tourist offerings, new tourist offerings to the region.
Thank you, Amr, for this opportunity. I would like to thank UNWTO for this opportunity, for this gathering to tell our stories and to exchange the thoughts and the ideas, learning from each other. And I think that I strongly believe that there is always an opportunity for improvement. Yes, we are in crisis, but there is always an opportunity to improve. Frankly speaking, about the numbers of Jordan and the slight decrease in the number, which is 6%. I think the recalculation of the formula of how do the statistics that they calculate, especially the Arab countries from Saudi Arabia specifically, we modify the model. So that's why reflected on in the number. But in terms of the tourism receipts, the numbers of or the statistics that will be published from the Central Bank of Jordan, I believe that there will be maybe the same number like last year, or maybe some improvements in the number. We succeeded to extend the length of stay of the tourists, and this is we consider it as an achievement for Jordan due to the political situation in Syria, and we are, they're grouping Jordan with Syria, and the misperception of Jordan since it's neighboring Syria. But we adopt a strategy to communicate a right message about Jordan, and we invited a lot of the media and journalists, and we focused on the bloggers, the active social media people. We invited 700 active bloggers from all around the world, specialized in different fields of tourism, gastronomy, eco and adventure, religious. We invited them to Jordan, and they communicated their experience in Jordan with the platforms and the tools that they use, like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And they convey the right message about Jordan, that Jordan is safe, Jordan will remain the oasis of peace as usual, and we succeeded to communicate this message with all around the world. Talking about the coalitions, let's say, namely the coalitions between other countries, we had a fruitful meeting with His Excellency, the Minister of Tourism in Egypt, and Her Excellency, the Minister of Tourism in Palestine. I think the coalitions and the joint ventures between these countries will result in a good manner if we just take the opportunity to present ourselves and promote our countries together, focusing on several or certain packages. We're talking about the religious tourism, the Islamic and the Christian product that we have. There's a lot of tourists after going to Hajj and Umrah in Saudi Arabia would love to come and pray in Jerusalem. So Jordan, we have 13 prophets buried in Jordan. We have 3,000 shrines of companions of Prophet Muhammad in Jordan. So these people would love to come to Jordan and to do the itinerary or the package in the Islamic sites and continue to Palestine. The Bob visit will be in 24th of May. It's an opportunity for Jordan and Palestine to introduce ourselves as a dual destination. And the 85% of the sites mentioned in the Old Testament, in the Bible, is in Jordan. And the New Testament, it's in Palestine. So we can combine, and now we'll do a joint brochure between Jordan and Palestine to promote the two countries for this product. Egypt, they are our partners, and we lost 40% from our tourism numbers because it's jointly with Egypt. So we had a meeting this morning with His Excellency to promote the Red Sea area resort, Sharm el-Sheikh, and all the resorts that they have with Aqaba, Wadi Rum, and Petra. So we completing each other, and we can create a new packages and itineraries for the tourists. The thing that I want to emphasize in terms of marketing, and I would like to address here the social media and e-marketing. I will talk from a technical perspective as a marketing entity. We found in Jordan that 30% of the tourists that we receive is as a packages and 70% as FITs. But we don't have the platform that can cater or can serve the FITs. So now we are planning to create a platform that contains all the service providers, the airlines, hotels, rental car companies, guides, all the local community activities will be in one place. And the payment gateway, it's already solved in Jordan. So all the payment gateways now, they signed with Jordanian banks, so this problem is already solved. The role of JTB to take this platform and we can put it with our e-marketing tools, and I believe that we will have a good number of FITs coming to Jordan because this is the trend nowadays. The tourists, they just search online and they book their tickets online, the hotel and all the other services. So I highly recommend that all the countries create these platforms that serve the FITs because this is the trend now. Going back to the important story, which is the transportation and the aviation issue. After 10 years serving in JTB, I discovered that the only problem that preventing tourism or tourists to come to Jordan is the airlines. Yes, it's a big problem. In Jordan, yeah, it's just we are facing the same problem. We conducted a study and a research, and we found that the government, they charge each passenger coming to Jordan within the, it's already within the ticket, $60 per passenger. It means that 10,000 per flight. If you multiply the $60 per 160 or 180 seats, so it's $10,000. So we are expensive comparing to Israel or Turkey or other competitive countries. The financial model that we built, basically talking about filling all the hotels in the Aqaba, Dead Sea, and Petra in the low season. And there is a commitment from several airlines that will coming to Jordan if we exempt or freeze this tax. All the studies and telling us that the tourists, they move by low-cost carriers as between 40 to 60% of the tourists. 30% of the tourists moving via charter flights. I am talking about the tourism. And 9 to 11%, they're using the regular flights. So these airlines, they are not coming to Jordan. We don't have low-cost carrier coming to Aqaba. Now EasyJet will stop the operation to Jordan beginning of May because I personally received the email from the CEO of EasyJet telling me that you are the highest taxes in the world. in terms of the ground handling and the landing fees and the taxes that charged by the government. So I communicated this message with the Ministry of Finance. The Ministry of Finance, I'm telling him, now we will take Aqaba as a pilot project. I told him, nowadays you are making $5 million US dollars from Aqaba Airport, from the charter flights and regular flights coming to Aqaba. But in the fact, I am subsidizing 1 million, and Aziz is subsidizing another 1 million. So the net is 3 million. But if you exempt all the airlines from this tax, which is the $60, you will receive 15 million to the treasury, because we will receive more tourists, more airlines coming to Aqaba, and the collections from the sales tax and the income tax will reflect on the economy, and this will contribute more 300 million to the tourism receipts. Aqaba, Petra, and the Dead Sea, we can receive only 130 additional passengers due to the capacity of the hotels. So 1 or 2 low-cost carriers and two charter flights will fill all the hotels in Jordan from 2 or 3 countries. So if you just present this approach to Spanish airlines, charter flights, or the low-cost carriers in Spain or other countries, definitely we need more room nights and more hotels in Jordan. And this is the idea now. We started communicating with the government. I hope that I will succeed in convincing the government to adopt this project. Finally, our national carrier, Royal Jordanian. As His Excellency Fadi Aboud mentioned, the fuel surcharge per passenger from any destination very close to Jordan, let's say from Italy, $320 per passenger, the fuel surcharge. This is, they can't compete. The other airlines, they subsidize the fuel charges. I don't want to name the airlines, but their governments subsidize the fuel, because they believe that when you subsidize the fuel, you reduce the prices of the tickets, reflects on the number of passengers that are coming to their countries. So the return on investment will be much higher. So when the governments stop thinking like an accountant, excuse my French, and to think from economic point of view, we will succeed to bring more business to our countries. The tourism, it's important than the oil industry. It's from my point of view. Yes.
It's a common denominator in all the countries present here today, and hence the need to have a very strong national policy for the tourism sector. We would have loved, this is an extremely enriching discussion. We wanted to please join me in thanking Their Excellencies, the Ministers of Tourism, who have been here today. We would have loved to extend this discussion a little bit, but unfortunately time constraints would not allow us this time, so we hope that we will benefit from your presence again in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you.